Let's start Federalism chapter. The first, what is Federalism? Federalism is a system of government in which the power is divided between a central authority and the various constituent units of the country. So in a federalism, it's a system of government in which the power is divided between central authority and the various constituent units of a country. So the power will divide between those two. We'll be calling it as a federalism. Federalism has two levels of government. One is a government for the entire country that is usually responsible for new subjects of common national interest. Yes, the other are government at the level of provinces or states that look after much of the day-to-day administering of the states. So in the federalism, there are two levels of government. One is a government for the entire country that is usually responsible for a few subjects of common national interest. Yes, the other one will be calling it as it's a level of government or a states that look after the day-to-day administering of the states. Federation or contrasted with unitary government. Under the unitary system, either there is only one level of government or the subunits or subordinates to the central. So in a unitary, I will repeat again, in a unitary system, there is only one government. Yes, so under the unitary system, either there is only one level of government or the subunits or the subordinates to the central. But in a federal, the central government cannot order the state government to do something. But in a unitary, the central government can order the state government. Yes, but both the government are separately answerable to the people. Now, federal government and the unitary government. Federal government, two levels of government, central government and state governments. Unitary, only one level of government, central government and national government. Second point in the federal, political power shared by two levels of government. In a unitary, political power held by central government only. So in this federal government, the political power will share among the two government, central as well as the state. But in a unitary, it's not like that. The power held by the central government only. The constitution is rigid and codified. The constitution is flexible and uncodified. So, it's rigid and codified. It's a flexible one. We cannot change the constitution. But in this, the constitution is a flexible one and we can change it. Two different types of law, central law and state law. But in this case of unitary government, it's only one set of law that is uniform for the whole country. Now, we'll look at what are the features of federalism. There are two or more levels or tiers of government. We have discussed the first point. In the economy, there are two or more levels of government or tiers of government. Different tiers of government govern the same citizen, but each tier has its own jurisdiction, a specific matter of legislation, taxation and administration. The different tiers, it's a different tiers of government, but the different tier of government going to govern the same citizen, but each tier has its own jurisdiction in a specific matter of legislation, taxation and administration. What is meant by jurisdiction? That is the area over which someone as a legal authority will be calling it as a jurisdiction. The jurisdiction of the respective levels or tiers of government are specified in the constitution. Yes, so whatever may be the jurisdiction and the respective levels and tiers of governments are specified in the constitution. So the existence or authority of each tier of government is constitutionally guaranteed. Yes, now the fundamental provisions of the constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by one level of government because such changes require the consent of both the levels of government. So, with the help of only both the levels of government alone, they can make any changes. Yes, now, courts have the power to interpret the constitution and the powers of different levels of government. Yes, so if at all something disputes between those two government, courts have the power to interpret the constitution and the powers of different levels of government So, the High Court acts as an umpire if the disputes arises between the different levels of government in the exercises for the respective powers. Now, sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure its financial autonomy. And the federal system thus has dual objective. What are those dual objectives? To safeguard and promote the unity of the country, while at the same time they are accountable to the regional diversities. So at the last, there are two kinds of routes through which federation have been formed. What are those two kinds of routes? First, the first route involved independent states coming together on their own and form a bigger unit. Yes, so what happened in the first routes, we'll be calling it as a coming together. Why we are calling it as a coming together? The independent states will come together and they will form a bigger units. Yes, so that by pooling their sovereignty and retaining the identity that can increase a security. We'll be calling it as a coming together federation. In the second one, we'll be calling it as a holding together federation. Why we are calling it as a holding together federation? The second route is where a large country decides to divide its power between the constituent states and the national governments. So that's what we'll be calling it as a holding together federations. Now, difference between coming together and holding together. In coming together, independent states coming together on their own to form a bigger units, I've said you already. In this case of holding together, large country decides to divide its power between constitutional units and center. In coming together, increase security by pooling the sovereignty and retaining the identity. But in the holding together, center is a more power than the states. All constituent states have equal power, but in this, the constituent units of federation have unequal power. Example of coming together: USA, Switzerland and Australia. Example of holding together: India, Spain and Belgium. So in today's class, we have discussed those points. First, what is meant by federalism and what are the two levels of federalism and difference between a unitary government and the federal government, and at the last, what are the features of federalism and what is meant by coming together and holding together. Yes? Thank you, students.